Hello, welcome to the channel of Tradeometry. Today is April 25th, Saturday. I want to talk about my new investment thesis regarding CPU. I did briefly talk about CPU before, but I wanted to use this opportunity to stress more about the CPU thesis. So I got a lot of new information from the Intel earnings report just released last Thursday, and I did a lot of more research on this topic, and I hope you can find this investment thesis helpful to your investment. AI's next hardware revolution. As of right now, the CPU to GPU ratio is roughly 1 to 8, meaning one CPU controls every 8 GPUs. However, in the near future, a few years from now, that ratio could flip from 8 to 1, meaning 8 CPUs to control 1 GPU. The relative market shift is 64 times. And let me explain why. So the old narrative is that the AI is training large models, and training is GPU-bound workloads. More GPUs equals more AI capability. NVIDIA owns the entire value chain, and CPU is legacy infrastructure. However, the emerging reality is that AI is shifting to inference plus agentic tasks. Agentic workloads are CPU-bound. Robots need CPU coordinations at the edge. GPU ratio is collapsing. CPU demand is about to explode. So the projected time here may be a little exaggerated, but the idea or the trend is very clear. The ratio of CPU to GPU is going to expand exponentially in the next few years. And most analysts aren't nearly ready for this kind of explosion. For every API call, Copilot suggestion, and AI-generated outputs runs on inference 24/7, perpetually. Unlike training runs that finish, inference never stops and scales with every new user. Agentic systems, planning, tool using, multi-step reasoning spend 95% of their compute on orchestration that is CPU-bound. Calling APIs, parsing data, managing state, conditional logic, physical AI, and robotics. Humanoid robots run hundreds of concurrent processes: vision, motor control, path planning, safety, NLP. That's a distributed CPU architecture. As robots scale from thousands to millions, CPU demand is enormous. So what does an agentic workload actually look like? It goes like this. So it can read email and then query database and then run the model and then parse the result and then draft a report and then schedule a meeting. So from step 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, all of those will use CPU. Only step 3 will use GPU. So roughly 95% of an agentic workflow runs on CPU other than the GPU. As AI evolves from answering questions to take actions, planning, coordinating, executing, the dominant hardware requirement shifts from parallel matrix math to sequential, conditional, CPU-native logic. Major players that stand to benefit. Number one, and also my favorite company here, is AMD. AMD is best positioned pure play. ePYC server CPUs take data center share from Intel. Agentic AI inference is a direct structural tailwind. This is also my highest pure play CPU exposure. ARM Holdings. Royalties on virtually every AI chips designed today. Cloud, edge, robots. More CPUs proliferating across all form factors equals more ARM revenue. Intel. Battered but not out. Xeon powers enterprise AI. Gaudi offers cost-efficient inference. Highest upside if execution recovers. So here, Intel and AMD both use x86 architecture, and ARM and the other custom silicons like Marvell and Broadcom, they use the ARM architecture. They both have their own advantages in certain areas, but both architecture will coexist in today's world. Marvell Technology designs custom inference ASICs for hyperscalers, acquired Inphi for optical DSP, dual exposure, compute plus interconnect. Broadcom designs Google GPU, Meta MTIA. Switch ASIC dominance let them set CPO standards for next-gen AI networking fabric. Micron Technology, CPU revival drives DDR5 adoption. AI CPUs needs far more memory per socket than legacy. Double exposure, HBM GPU plus DDR5 AI CPU. The CPU comeback amplifies upstream demand. The memory connection. AI era CPUs built for high core count orchestration workloads require dramatically more memory bandwidth than traditional server CPUs. More DIMM slots per socket, higher capacity DDR5 pools, faster memory standards across the board. The memory content per AI CPU socket is significantly higher than a legacy enterprise server socket. As CPU unit volumes grow and average memory footprint per CPU expands simultaneously, upstream DRAM demand compounds aggressively, a dynamic almost entirely missing from analyst models. Ripple effect across the supply chain. DRAM and DDR5. More AI CPUs means more high bandwidth memory socket, more DDR5 demand. Micron has double exposure, HBM for GPUs plus DDR5 for AI CPUs. PCLE and XCL interconnect, more CPUs coordinating across more specialized accelerators means more high-speed interconnect fabric. Every node added is incremental revenue. Substrate and packaging. Advanced AI CPUs use more complex packaging, chiplet integration, advanced substrate than their legacy predecessors, driving ASP uplift across the supply chain. Fab capacity. CPU volume growth runs through TSMC and Intel Foundry. TSMC's N3 and N2 nodes are primary targets. Equipment suppliers, AMAT, LRCX, benefit regardless of which chips fill capacity. The GPU era is not ending. It is being joined by a CPU era that may ultimately be larger. The ratio shift is not in consensus. The 1:8 to 8:1 CPU to GPU inversion is absent from most analyst models. The market has not priced a structural 64x relative shift in CPU demand within AI infrastructures. Second order plays are undervalued. AMD, ARM, Marvell, and Micron all have meaningful CPU exposure that isn't fully priced. The market remains GPU-centric in its AI infrastructure framework, and robotics is the long tail. Robot CPU content at scale, millions of humanoids, each running distributed compute, is the outermost expansion of this thesis and barely appears in any model today. Investors who remain GPU only in their AI infrastructure positioning are holding a thesis that was correct for phase 1 of a multi-phase transformation. Phase 2 is underway. These are all the slides that I have here. I also have a Patreon article that I share on my Patreon page. You're welcome to check it out. Right now, my largest position of my stock holdings is AMD. AMD basically grew from my third largest position to become my largest position of my portfolio. It is quite amazing, and that only happened within 2 weeks. The rate of growth and the enthusiasm coming into this thesis is unbelievable. I think even me have underestimated how big of a shift that is. This ratio conversion from 1:8 to 8:1 CPU to GPU ratio is something that I heard from the Intel earnings report. Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan is doing an amazing job. I fully underestimate his capability to turn around Intel's business. Intel delivered amazing earnings. Even for me as an AMD bull, I was very dismissive of Intel, to be honest. But after going through their earnings, their financial report, it was quite amazing how fast the turnaround happened under the new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan. And he has delivered some very, very amazing informations that I did not know. Number one is that Intel had a lot of old inventories that they were ready to write off. Basically, they were ready to treat those inventories as zero. However, very surprisingly, they were able to sell all of those inventories for full price, for 100% of the price. They basically recovered a lot of revenue that was going to be completely regarded as garbage. That's how much shortage we have in the CPU market. This is quite shocking. He also stressed that from training to inference, to the agentic world, to the physical AI and robotic world, the CPU to GPU ratio is going to explode exponentially. And most people are not expecting this. So this only makes me more bullish on the CPU thesis and more bullish on AMD. And all the other CPU players like Intel and ARM and a lot of other players like Marvell and Broadcom who make customized CPUs, because the CPU market is so big, everyone can benefit from this. As I mentioned in the slides, all the major players here will benefit tremendously from this shift. I only mentioned 6. There are definitely more than 6 players because Semiconductor has a huge supply chain. So if you wanted to learn more about the supply chain, please check my article from the Patreon page. This is one of my accounts. I have 1,000 shares of AMD, and it's becoming my largest position of that portfolio. I have 3 accounts that have over 1,000 shares of AMD, and if you combine all 3 accounts, basically I have over 7-figure worth of AMD shares in my account. So that's how bullish I am with AMD. Different account have different average cost. So this one I'm already up over 88%. The other account I have average cost around 200 or slightly under 200. They were up over 60-70% year to date. It was unbelievable. What an unbelievable run that AMD had in the past few weeks. But I still feel like I'm not bullish enough. What a crazy world we are living in. But I do anticipate a little bit pullback in the next week because things have happened in the weekend because of the Iran talk did not happen. People were expecting they were going to have a talk in Pakistan. U.S. representative did not even go to Pakistan, and the Iranian foreign minister went to Pakistan but only spoke to the mediator without speaking to any U.S. people. So they're basically demanding U.S. to withdraw the current blockade in the Strait of Hormuz before a real peace talk. We did not have a deal over the weekend. I don't know how long the Strait of Hormuz will be blocked. The longer this block lasts, it becomes a little tougher for the global supply chain. If this blockade persists, I do anticipate semiconductor sector to pull back a little bit next week. However, any dip next week will be bought, and I'm ready to buy more into some other semiconductor names. I've shared those names in my Patreon articles and my Discord channel to my members. Please feel free to check them out. If you have any thoughts, please leave it in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Another Monday, green on the screen, feeling so serene. Leverage the assets, living the dream, a money machine. Blue chip vision, make the right decision with perfect precision. Yo, we own the street, can't accept defeat. This bull run is sweet.